Hello. Yesterday, I really struggled to upload that video because my internet was acting, either my internet or the space on my phone. Anyway, but I did, so thank God for small mercies. So today I actually want to talk a little bit about value chains and decolonizing value chains, but also like what does it actually mean to build a value chain, and like how to do it in a way that's like equitable and fair, and also supports and uplifts communities. So for me, as someone who works in the innovation space, I'm always just very fascinated about at new ideas. And I think a pattern that I realize around ideas in general is that there's truly nothing new under the sun, that every new, latest, interesting innovation is mapped on something that someone has already done, something that existed before, some new discovery of what is already in existence. I think I said this before, I think about AI. I love talking about AI because essentially it's like our discovery of the human brain and our mapping that information about how the brain works to how we can create sort of like a mechanical brain through like a computer that takes information and decodes information and then uses that information to make better decisions, things of that nature. And so AI to me presents like a very good example of like the technology might seem new, but it's predicated on what already exists and putting it into a different type of machinery. So when we talk about adding value, I think value addition is one of those things that does require some sort of innovation, like some sort of research, development, design element. Because, for example, you can have a shea nut and, maybe you just roast a shea nut and maybe you would eat the shea nut. But then someone is like, well, no, like, let's actually roast it and reduce it and then grind it and then, take out the oils and do this and do that, and now we have something that was maybe like just a nut on a tree that is now a butter for skin that even if you look beyond that, might even be able to extract some of the things that make shea butter work and use it for something else. So, value addition really is like predicated on innovation. But the thing about innovation is, having the space to imagine. And interestingly, imagination, while one might think like everybody can imagine, like it's open to everyone, it's accessible to everyone, imagination is actually something that you have to develop on purpose. So, I think about children, and I would say the most imaginative people are obviously children. And then after they reach a certain age, we put them into a system, and the purpose of that system is to standardize them and make them ready for a certain type of world. And this standardization process oftentimes means that they are the type of imagination that they may have started with is being formed and fashioned in a specific mold, which means they're becoming less and less imaginative. And when I say less imaginative, obviously I'm thinking a child is now where, they would be free to explore, to ask questions, to find out new things. They're being stopped or prevented from doing that because of some conventional belief, some cultural idea, whatever. That's even more heinous in the colonial setup where our school systems were created to create workers or to basically ensure that we would have administrators for British systems, for French systems, things like that. And unfortunately, many of our systems, our school systems specifically, still have that mindset of creating laborers or creating people who will do something for someone else. And that's true in America, that's true in the Caribbean, that's true on the continent. And that the set of people who have access to an education that allows them more exploratory option is often people who can afford that kind of safety net. That is, if you decide to explore and that set of explorations does not provide you with something profitable to do, we have money, so you can just like fall back on us. It's okay, like have fun, explore. And so when I say, decolonizing like value chains or decolonizing even the imagination, it was really that thing of like, how do we get back to a place where the ideas, the imaginations that we have about the things that are around us, the things that we have access to, can help us to think about building value chains in a new, interesting, exciting, and different way. I think, for example, about something like Venmo, which here we think of as like mobile money. This idea that you're sending money, through your phone, is something that was started here, because what was happening here, as in on the continent, because what was happening is people, have prepay, and actually you see this in the hood as well when you look at food stamps. People have access to a commodity or a asset, and that asset is not cash, but it is a value, and so they trade that thing for money, at a discount in order to be able to buy something else. So for example, you'll see people selling their food stamps like if I got $40 food stamps, I might sell it to you for like $35, because the cash at this point is more important than the kind of food that I would buy with the food stamps. Similarly, with credit, people were trading credit. Like I have phone credit, maybe I have 10 CDs worth of phone credit, and maybe you gave me, I need to buy a shirt, and I know at some point you're gonna buy phone credit, so let me just send you 10 CDs worth of phone credit and you give me the shirt, and it's operating like money, right? And so these are the kind of things, right, like where they're born out of a certain type of experience, unique to a certain set of people, but they've created a whole different ecosystem. Like right now, because of mobile money, because of things, because of that financial incentive, where mobile operators saw that this was happening. It was like, well, why don't we, if other people are doing this, we're not extracting value from that. So like, let's actually make this a thing and like extract value from that. And then now you've created a whole entire industry around a need that you saw in the market from some set of people. But that thing does not accrue value for that set of people. It's not like the people who basically created this digital bartering system are making money from it. They're not. Now they're just being extracted in a new way. And so when we talk about imagination, we talk about building value chains, we talk about decolonization, these things are related, because if someone had the freedom, right, like if they felt in their education and in the expression of their identity in the space that they were in their class, whatever, identities might limit what they believe is possible for them, that they could actually pursue this, like, wow, we're doing this bartering. Why don't I build an app? Why don't I build this? Why don't I, create a partnership, an IP, this mode of bartering, so that the mobile operators have to come and pay me before they actually execute it, right? If we had that freedom of imagination for ourselves and that freedom of exploration to see, how our ideas can turn into something profitable together with other people, as opposed to like just extractive and like them making money off of our ideas, this world will look a lot different. And actually the value chains that we could create would be, I just think like, what if the continent and the Caribbean, what if we had actually experienced the Industrial Revolution instead of being under colonization or enslaved at the time that it was happening? Like, what if it was ours? I think of all the Black inventors in the US and how they were able to capitalize on the Industrial Revolution happening there. What could that have looked like for the continent? What could that have looked like for the Caribbean if we had access to those same kind of modalities, And so I think all of this is food for thought in terms of how are we allowing our imaginations to, freeing ourselves a little bit from what we can and can't do because of our color, because of our class, because of our language, because, of how we look, etc. If we just kind of like freed ourselves mentally to even just explore in our minds. Like, this is not even one of those things where it's like, oh, well, we don't have access to capital. Before we get into all of the things that make it difficult to start a business and to do the things, freeing your mind to say, let me actually sit with myself and decide that if I wanted, to build a space station where coconuts grew on Mars, I'm allowed to imagine that. I'm allowed to actually pursue that, to do research on that, to think about what that would require of me, to think about who's in the space of doing coconuts outside of the tropics. Like, I'm allowed to have these thoughts, and I'm allowed to pursue these thoughts. And the pursuit of these thoughts is not a waste of time or energy, because in the long run, they could create benefit for me. Now, obviously, not for us to just get stuck in our imaginations and not do real things, but to say, like, give ourselves room to imagine. And by doing that, we can really wow ourselves with the kind of value chains that we might be recreating, the kind of products, the kind of innovations that we would bring to our communities, etc. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about, so I'd be interested to hear again from you all about your thoughts on like innovation in Afro-diasporan communities, about, decolonizing imagination. I talk about a little bit about education. There's a lot of things, like if this is a Venn diagram, a lot of overlapping circles, but feel free to share your thoughts. Thank you.